coming to get you, Barbara.
I ain't one to make a fuss about a thing like that.
Make your wishes.
They're coming for you.
There's one more little bit of media we should probably talk about, and that's going to be books. Do you read anything regularly that kind of keeps you in the mood for Halloween?
Thank you for adding that addendum. There's a very important distinction to be made there. So
spooky shades of gray.
I read.
You want me to put this pumpkin where?
I read on a daily basis, and I think that I feel much more healthy and satisfied when I do read on a daily basis. There were several years when I basically didn't read at all, and I didn't enjoy that. But there's nothing that I read regularly. Like I don't just open the same book, once every couple months and do a reread of it because I would rather spend that time elsewhere. But I do love reading scary stories. Basically any kind of scary story. I mean, I think that it goes without saying that the both of us are huge fans of the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark series.
Yes, love it.
Bloody Fingers and The Big Toe and was it Wonderful Sausages, all of those things, and that you're not doing it right if you're not using the original illustrations, which were just dream haunting.
I don't like to shame artists, and I'm sure again, I don't like to shame artists, and I know whoever made the new illustrations really put their best work into it, and they probably had a set guideline of what the people putting it out were wanting. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sought them out who have such a clear illustrative style, because they had already done the illustrations for the series of unfortunate events. So you know real well what their illustration style is, but they do not even match. They don't even reach the same stratosphere as the original illustrations of the book.
There is this abstract, dream-like quality to all of those original illustrations. It makes you feel like there legitimately exists in this world some nightmare plane from which these ideas are flowing. And to this day, when I open up the first volume, I almost always open it immediately to the haunted house story and have to see that full page image of that girl with eyes like rotting out, and it still gives my heart a flutter. These illustrations are so beautiful, and the stories, I mean, they're classic. Like none of them are particularly scary. They're all fairly generic, but it's exactly
simple.
What you want. It's like the Halloween version of a Grimm's fairy tales or something along those lines.
I'll agree with you. I remember I got the first book at a book fair for like $1. Yeah, it was one of the $1, not even a book fair. It was the little Scholastic book orders. That's where I got it, and I got it probably in September. And I remember being in like first or second grade or whenever I got it, and I just could not put that book down. Granted, I think it reads a lot better when you are at that age level and you do read a bit slower, because it helps you really feel like you're consuming something heavily instead of being an adult and reading 5 paragraphs and being, it's a bit more underwhelming than I remember. The tension really builds if you just read it really slow. And the illustrations make it feel like, especially at that age, like you were reading something you weren't supposed to.
Yeah.
Or if, like that picture of the lady, you're thinking, what's this about? Like it draws you in, like, and there's probably something in here I shouldn't be reading, but I'm going to.
And there are a few of those stories that I think are legitimately very haunting. So there's one of them that always comes to my mind, Room for One More, when this guy keeps having dreams and weird experiences of somebody trying to get him to come into an elevator or come into a hearse or whatnot, and they're always saying, there's room for one more. And then it ends up happening in real life that an overcrowded elevator like falls to the bottom of the shaft and kills everybody. There's this one about a son who sees death beckoning to him from across a field in the country, or no, I think the father sees that, and so he's like telling his. I'm sorry, one of my alarms just went off. I don't know what that was for. So like the father is telling
Security
his son,
alarm?
no, like alarm clock. You got to get out of here. Death is here. I want you to stay safe. You need to go out, run off to the city. And then he meets Death again, and Death says, I was just beckoning to you because I was confused. You're all the way out here, but I'm supposed to have an appointment with your son tonight in the city. And it's just this this ball drop, or like this stomach dropping feeling for a few of these things that I think are just legitimately very terrifying stories.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. One thing that really can't be underestimated, and I think it's something the book still does well across generations, is dark comedy. If you're a fan of dark comedy, every volume of this 3-volume book has a section for funny, scary stories, and I think they still hold up pretty well. I mean, they were corny when I read them. They're still corny now, but they are good for a dark little laugh. Like Wait Till Martin Comes.
So the one that made me laugh the most as a little kid was Bloody Fingers. Because for some reason the idea of somebody just telling this ghost, dude, get a Band-Aid. That was funny to my child brain. But Wait Till Martin Comes, now that I've gotten a little older, that one is the one that really gets me. I think that is hilarious. Because it's so surreal.
A story that wouldn't work without the illustration, I forget which one it is, but I believe it's in the third one. Basically, there's this haunting figure looming over this guy, and he taps him on the shoulder and says, "Pardon me, what's the problem?" That's pretty much a story. But the fucking illustration! You have this skeleton with this giant head, and his eyeballs are popping out, and everything. All these illustrations are very stringy, very gnarly, and raw looking. And you just see that, and it terrified me. I didn't even want to read the story because the picture was so gruesome.
I have possibly made this up because I don't remember what story it's from. But I swear, isn't there a story in those books where like this ghost is haunting somebody, and the only thing it does is it like runs up to him and pokes him in the nose and goes or something like that, like sticks his tongue out at him?
Perhaps.
I'm pretty sure
I feel
that's
like I recall that.
It's like the thematic equivalent of some horrifying spectral figure just going boop.
But while we're on it, what are your general opinions about the movie?
I didn't like it is the short answer. I'm not sure that it was offensively bad, but I'll say this over and over again. If you're not going to tell the story of a piece of source material, then don't adapt it. Do your own thing. The Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark movie was at most like a loosely strung together anthology of references to the books. That's all that it really was. It wasn't an actual recounting of these stories, which is what I would have liked to have seen. And so I don't associate the two. When I think of the books, I don't think of the movie. I didn't even remember that the movie existed until you brought it up. I will admit freely that the scene of the woman in the hospital hallway with, I think,
the woman in the red room.
in the red room, that was terrifying. They did an excellent job with that. But I think that is balanced out for me by how cringy I found the Mitai Doti Walker monster. They decided to make that some weird alien predator monstrosity, and it just didn't work.
One thing about that, though, the only thing I really liked about the Mitai Doti Walker portion of that movie was once he's together, once all the limbs are together, that's a real person. He's like this crazy contortionist. So all those scenes are actually practical effects when he's twisting and moving around unnaturally.
That is certainly very impressive. Like I can respect them for doing that, but I mean that doesn't have any bearing on the story, I guess.
No, I will say the stories are good, yes, and they're good intro horror. In a perfect world, probably the best adaptation of it would to make those scary images into like a 6 or 7 minute short compilation like Death, Love, and Robots on Netflix. But I don't see that being able to appeal to a young audience targeted to the book, which that's kind of what the stories would lend themselves to still, if there wasn't some zhuzhing involved.
Which I don't want to linger on this for too long, but I think that it shouldn't be understated how important the illustrations are in making those books the classics that we view them to be. The stories in isolation aren't really that good. It is the combination of the stories and the illustrations that sells it. And so if you're trying to adapt this set of like 5 paragraph long children's scary stories into another medium, and you are not carrying over that nightmarish abstract quality that all that art has, then you're not carrying over the thing that made it so good. Which is probably one of the reasons the Red Room scene worked so well in the movie, because it was basically a copy and paste of the illustration.
Yeah. I really liked... Which one was it? I think Guillermo del Toro did a decent job with the character design. I will give him that. And I do think it's really interesting, the Big Toe segment of the movie, which I think has a soft spot in everyone's heart because it's the first one everybody read, and it's the one everybody remembers most fondly because it was like, whoa, this is something. Because you just kind of have the boy as a character insert. And they kind of combined that monster with the haunted house lady. Mm-hmm. So I think that one worked for me, especially because maybe I'm just biased because that's who I imagined in the My Big Toe segment, because as a kid you just flip through the book and you look at the illustrations before you read it. She was who I imagined in the Where's My Toe segment, but I enjoyed it. And another thing I really like about the books is it has an appendix in the back that tells you where he pulled all these stories from, and there's a lot of really good and interesting reads in there as well about understanding folklore and urban mythology.
Yeah, I think it's the foreword or something along those lines in the first book where he talks about a king or a prince or whatever who's telling a story, and it like begins in a cemetery at night and nobody knows how the story ends because he never finished it. I always found that to be very evocative.
I also like the story about the girl in the graveyard
with the knife
who was dared to yeah
yeah
just little things like that. It kind of, you can tell some of these stories have just been told through generations and some over centuries, and it's just fun to realize how these basic stories still hold up and are still really effective. Even if your rational brain can explain them, there's something in the back that says, what if? And I just find stories like that are able to seep in so simply very thrilling.
And I think everybody secretly hopes that in some part of their brain that somewhere out there in the world there are these kind of thin patches where reality can be whatever you want it to be, and the world can be bigger and more mysterious than we give it credit for. And anytime something can evoke that feeling, then I think it's definitely a win. I think cosmic horror in general handles that vibe a lot better. And weirdly enough, I think cosmic horror and these weird little folklore stories share that in common, that they just kind of make you feel like the world is bigger and more mysterious.
Yeah. Well, my thing is, these stories, I mean, nowadays you have a more complex audience and you have to make stories more complex or else people just won't enjoy them, I guess. But with that, unfortunately, comes a bit of the audience is able to explain away what's going on. Like Friday the 13th is like, okay, I just won't go to Camp Crystal Lake. Halloween, okay, I'm not Michael Myers' sister. I have nothing to worry about. I don't fuck with that bitch. Pet Cemetery, okay, I just won't bury an animal in a pet cemetery that I know is haunted. Da-da-da. But all these stories, for the most part, are stories that could literally happen to anyone. Even as a kid, it's funny how it resonates because I can't really think of too many children's books where the majority of characters we read about are adults. And Scary Stories Tell in the Dark, most of the stories are about adults doing things. And yet still as children, we're able to be the audience insert and put ourselves in their shoes and be like, oh damn, this could happen to literally anyone. It's just a matter of circumstance.
I would say that's owed in part to the fact that the stories are so simple. I mean, we don't really have much of an inner dialogue or an inner narrative for these stories. So, one of the big issues with writing adult characters in children's fiction is that children are not adults. So there are a lot of things that adults would think about or ways in which adults would think that aren't really going to resonate with a child. And when you have stories that are this short and this simple, you don't really have to worry about that. It can just be, Roger trying to go through this haunted house.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some explaining away you can do, but then again, the stories are so odd and strange in themselves in some points. They're either complete character inserts or they're so odd and strange and abstract, like the My Big Toe story. How? The story is basically kid's gardening one day, he finds a toe. He takes it to his mom. Mom says, yum, we're going to cook that for dinner. And then they eat a toe for dinner.
I never questioned that. That was just made sense to me.
I did, but I was that kid. I was like, it's not my place to judge their lifestyle.
Clearly, they are very hungry people. Okay, clearly they have food insecurity. I think we've probably talked about Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark for long enough at this point.
Right. Do you have any final thoughts on Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark?
No, I mean, I could sit here and talk about it for a very long time, but I don't want it to dominate the podcast.
All right, well, guess what? Save it for next year. Come see us again on next year's podcast. What else do you have?
For books?
Do you have any other books that, really flick your, what would you call it, your spooky bean?
If you want me to answer questions, you're going to have to start asking me questions that I want to answer. I'm not flicking any spooky beans, Dylan. That's not happening. I do have a couple more books.
Any books that choke your creepy chicken?
That's even worse. Coraline by Neil Gaiman. I know that a lot of people have probably seen the animated movie, and I think that the movie is decent, but just like I talked about Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark not capturing what makes the source material so good, I feel the same way about the Coraline movie. I mentioned cosmic horror a little bit briefly, and there is a genre that I really don't think I have seen very much of, which is children's cosmic horror. I don't know if I could name a single other property that I have ever seen that has executed children's cosmic horror, and that's what Coraline is. It has a lot of gothic elements to it, but ultimately it's an homage to Lovecraft. And the ways in which fear is created in this story is just so astonishing. I've ran and gotten the book so that I can read this one specific passage from it that I just think is so beautiful and evocative. She dreamed of black shapes that slid from place to place, avoiding the light until they were all gathered together under the moon. Little black shapes with little red eyes and sharp yellow teeth. They started to sing. We are small, but we are many. We are many, we are small. We were here before you rose. We will be here when you fall. And the tunnel itself is another quality to the story that does not get expounded upon in the movie, because you have the other mother, who is I think a beldam is what they call her, and she's this sort of cosmic demonic entity that feasts on souls. But it's made very clear that she is new. Like, she is relatively young and relatively weak compared to what's out there. Every time Coraline goes through the tunnel, she muses about how it feels alive, and she touches the walls, and sometimes she feels fur, and sometimes she feels this sticky, rough moistness like the inside of the mouth, and she can feel this presence creeping up behind her that feels, quote, something very old and very slow. Like, that it's written like this juvenile Alice in Wonderland style simplistic story, but this little girl is just surrounded by horrifying demonic like interdimensional activity, and I don't think I've seen anything else like it. I would love to be directed to more properties of this nature. I think Neil Gaiman himself said that he found Coraline so interesting because children who read it viewed it as a fun adventure, and adults who read it found it horrifying. And I think that's such an interesting dynamic. Do you have any thoughts on Coraline? Have you read the book?
Oh yeah, I've read the book multiple times. I agree with you, and it's a very digestible read. What is it, like 130 pages and big font?
Yeah,
and illustrations.
I reread it a couple months ago, and I read the whole thing like in 2 hours, like in a single night. Like, it's very easily digestible.
Very easy to read, and it's relatively cheap if you go out and get it too. One thing I was alarmed by, I know we were talking about Scary Stories Tell in the Dark and the reissue they did. They actually reissued Coraline as an adult book. Like, they didn't change anything of it, but they changed the cover, and I think they took out the illustrations, so it would seem, they changed the cover, and if you look it up, anyone who's out there on your phone not driving, you can go ahead and look it up. They did like an adult version of the book novel just so it would appeal to a wider audience, because like you said, it does resonate with multiple other people for multiple different reasons. And I'll probably have to reread it because I read it when I was rather young, so I didn't get a lot of those cosmic aspects, unfortunately, or I didn't really grasp them as well. I've just recently gotten into more cosmic horror as I've appreciated the genre. And I think it's important to note, too, I didn't see the movie before I read the book. So I was just going off the book, and I was a little let down by the movie. Now, if you wanted to, I believe that claymation style would have worked had we done something more akin to 9 and made the characters look a bit more realistic. Or better yet, here's a fun game to play while we're sitting here on the pod. Jacob, Coraline, the movie. Here's the assignment. The story is recast with the Muppets, but you get one human. Who is that human, and who is playing the Muppets?
Okay, so I've seen people play this game on social media. Let's see. So, I mean, everybody else is the Muppets, obviously. It's just I have to decide who the human is. Is that correct?
Yes, and who is the human?
Okay.
Like, who's playing the human?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for obvious reasons, the human would have to be Coraline. I mean, the only other sensible option would be the other mother. right? Because there's two
Mhm.
ways that you could interpret it. One is Coraline is the only human, because in the real world, everybody else is bleak and depressed, and they aren't really living their life. And in the other world, everyone is fake. They're just constructs created by this demon to appeal to her. Then the other interpretation would be that the other mother is the only real human, because she is the one that is trying to bring Coraline out of that bleak depression, and show her something better. And of course, that better thing is a
Mhm.
lie, but it would still be an excellent way to show the contrast between the gray world that Coraline lives in and this
Mhm.
fantasy world that lies through the tunnel. What do you think?
I'll let you. I'll let. Oh, I think it should be the old man. Should be the human.
The rat guy?
Yeah,
Why is that?
just for the visceralness of everyone else being Muppets, but he's real. But no, I do agree with you. If we're having Coraline be the human, David Harbour's the only one who can play Coraline. For those who don't know, it's Sheriff Hopper from Stranger Things.
Okay, why is he playing Coraline?
Him surrounded by Muppets? Are you kidding? If we're gonna have a Coraline movie made of Muppets, we might as well go broke or go home.
Okay, I think that watching anything with him surrounded by Muppets would be entertaining, but I don't think he makes a good Coraline. I think that there are
I'm
several
a little girl.
very obvious reasons. So there is like a blooper of him with a wig pretending to be 11. He was saying that he originally auditioned for Stranger Things to be 11, but they gave him Hopper instead, and it was making him angry. So I suppose that does fit with his personality.
I think. Okay, in all seriousness, Fozzie Bear is playing the old man. Miss Piggy is playing the mother and the other mother. Oh yeah, I like that. I like that already. The father will give to Kermit, just cuz. And the two ladies, the big-breasted lady from the animated cartoon, which I'm not really sure why they gave her such big boobs in a children's movie, and such, like, because she's shaped in the what is it, the Power of Venus or whatever, the painting,
Yeah.
something to do with Venus, whatever. But she just has these, it's basically pasties on her nipples, and the rest of it you just see boob.
So that is, I think, very evocative of the book, though, because these two old women are constantly going on with each other and talking about how they used to be actresses and how men used to fawn over them. So the idea that they're like these nasty old people that are still pretending to be seductive, like that perfectly fits, I think, with their characters.
And the rats are played by Camilla and the chickens. No, Rizzo. Come on, what are we doing? Rizzo the fucking rat. But no, seriously, Coraline, it's a great story. I didn't every time I've read it, I've gotten more out of it. I honestly need to buy it and do a big revisit on it, so I can appreciate it better as an adult. I have seen the Coraline movie recently, and I liked it, but it did give me that longing to read the book again because I found the book more effective, and the illustrations are just as weird and static as something you would see in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Did you have any other books you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I suppose so. I don't want to dominate the conversation. So the other two things that come to my mind are sort of the two of the titans of classic horror. One would be Edgar Allan Poe, and the other would be H.P. Lovecraft. For each of them, I have like these massive gold trimmed tomes, a compilation of all the Edgar Allan Poe's works, and it's like this dark blue and black anthology, or I guess whatever you want to call it, compendium. And then I have one for H.P. Lovecraft as well. The issue is that Edgar Allan Poe suffers from the Seinfeld isn't funny effect. He is such an archetypical producer of gothic horror that most of his stuff now comes off as very cliche. And I don't blame him for that at all. It's just the nature of the way that the genre has developed. Like in some ways he fathered our modern concept of it. And so when we go back to him, it just resonates as hollow. And I don't think that the same thing is true for Lovecraft, and I love cosmic horror a lot more than I do gothic horror because I just find it so much more resonant for actually scaring somebody.
And cosmic's a bit harder to do.
It's much harder to do, and there's so much more that
effectively
you can do with it. I mean, it would certainly be an accurate meme to say that like ultimately every single cosmic horror story is just nameless writhing things, but it's the emotions that you create in the reader that really sell it. And I think one short simple story from Lovecraft that's one of my favorite is Nyarlathotep. Have you read Nyarlathotep?
No, but I was prescribed it and it cleared up my thing real well.
Yes. I do make sure that you're not allergic though, because I've heard that some people can have some bad reactions.
Yeah, I just have to eat it. I just have to eat something before I take it.
I think if you are allergic to Nyarlathotep, then you can try Metreon or Zinthos, and that'll probably do about the same thing. So it's a short story. It's only like a few pages long. It's about this guy named Nyarlathotep who claims to be descended from the pharaohs out of Egypt, and he goes around hosting these like pseudo intellectual circus type things where he shows people wonders and flashing lights and ancient videos of people worshiping like on hills and whatnot, and it just has this feeling of ancient revelation. And everywhere he goes, people start to have bad dreams, and there's a general sense of unease. And the main character, he goes to one of these things and he makes this kind of sly comment about it being fake or whatnot, and it pisses Nyarlathotep off, and he like kind of unleashes this magical, dick measuring contest style of display, and when everybody leaves, they find themselves in this sort of alien version of their own world where the seasons don't make sense, and there's just this eerie lighting, and it's as if they've gone to a different dimension, or they've traveled hundreds of years into the future, and they try to organize each other into columns and figure a way out, and they just kind of wander forever and slowly go crazy. And something about how short and sweet the story is really gets to me, as well as the idea of the Nyarlathotep figure, because he has inspired a lot of the more modern interpretations of that form of character, like Randall Flagg from the Stephen King mythos, if you want to call it that, is, as far as I can tell, an intentional reference to Nyarlathotep.
And it's alluded to. I'll piggyback off this because you're the H.P. Lovecraft guy and I'm the King guy. It's kind of alluded to that there are more of him on different planes of existence. Because one of the big things in the King universe is there are other worlds than these. So it does kind of lend itself to that being the case. They play off each other a lot. Well, King plays off of Lovecraft a lot. They don't really play off of each other a lot.
Yeah, I don't think... I didn't catch it when you said it, but no, I don't think Lovecraft has many Stephen King references in his works, I'm sorry to say.
I mean, Call of Cthulhu is basically Misery. Just with a different title.
Do you have any books?
I don't read.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. One book that I recently discovered and I just read is going to be made into a movie soon is Dark Harvest. Yes, Dark Harvest by Norman Partridge. It's a really good book. It uses a lot of fall and Halloween language. It actually won a Bram Stoker Award, which is a prestigious award for horror writing, obviously. But I will say this, probably the general story could be better. It does read like a film script, and it is really simple instead of very complex. But reading it again, it was very enjoyable. Essentially, the plot of the story is this whole town is kind of plagued by this curse, where every year all of the boys have to go out and they have to play this game on Halloween night. And there is this thing called the October Boy, who is basically the scarecrow with a pumpkin head that comes into town and starts killing people. And if he gets to a certain place in town, it enacts this terrible curse. So it's up to the people in town to make sure he's dead and doesn't make it to the city center. But along the way, it uses a lot of really beautiful fall language, such as referring to the streets being as dark as black licorice, the sun setting like candy corn. It's very eloquent, and it does make you feel the fall atmosphere of 1960s middle America.
And you said they were making a movie of it?
Yes.
When does that come out?
I'm not sure when it comes out. I just know it's in development. But you can get the book for fairly cheap. But yeah, there aren't any illustrations in the book. The font type is really big. It's a real quick read, and it is an enjoyable read for October. Like I said, it's really quick. Stephen King really loved this book. Who else was it? Peter Staub liked it. I believe even Dean Koontz wrote a review for it. The lesser Stephen King Light. But the whole story is just really, really awesome, and it does correctly what I wish we could see more of in horror, which is the sort of scarecrow type figure. I love seeing that, but you don't see a whole lot of that in horror, especially done effectively, like the monster with a pumpkin head that just has a butcher knife going around killing people. I just find that really interesting and dynamic, especially given the stakes. And there are revelations made in the book, and from there, the whole story just goes completely bonkers. Let's see. And the other book I had was just The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. It's always been a mainstay in my house ever since I've just had this weird fascination with the story from a very young age, seeing the Disney movie, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, and seeing the Bing Crosby narrated Legend of Sleepy Hollow. I find the setting so enticing. I find the character of Ichabod Crane very interesting. And Washington Irving's writing just makes you, because he did live in the area, it makes you feel like you're living in Sleepy Hollow at the moment and understanding all these Dutch legends and folklore, and that fear that still lingered in the quote-unquote civilized society of at nighttime bad things happen. So there's things you don't do at night. And that fear is something that still, I think, resonates with a lot of people. You have people who aren't afraid of the dark, but if you put yourself in the position of if you were walking down a road in the middle of the woods all by yourself, would your imagination not get away from you? And I couldn't say no. I couldn't say no to that. So I find that really interesting.
This is purely speculation, but I get the impression that the Legend of Sleepy Hollow might be similar to Frankenstein in the sense that almost everybody knows about the monster, right? Everybody knows Frankenstein's monster. Everybody knows the Headless Horseman, and they've heard of Sleepy Hollow. But I wonder how many people actually know the story, like have read The Legend of Sleepy Hollow or have seen one of the movies. Because I know that there have probably been several movies. I have a very visceral memory of one of them where like this guy gets his head cut off and there's just like blood raining everywhere, which is
Yes, that would have been the Tim Burton's movie Sleepy Hollow, probably.
it would have had to been for like 20 years ago or something like that. But
Oh yeah,
yeah, because like
and I really enjoy that one, by the way.
that is an extremely, I guess, autumnal feeling story, and it's just not something that comes to my mind very often.
And spoiler alert for a 200-year-old story, a lot of the adaptations of this book have tried to make sense of its ending because the ending's left very ambiguous. And for a good reason. You have the scene where Ichabod is being chased by the Headless Horseman, but it's also alluded to that the Headless Horseman may have been Brom Bones, who has also been who they're kind of adversaries. Brom Bones is everything Ichabod is not, and Ichabod's everything Brom Bones is not. So they kind of play off each other in terms of wanting the affection of Katrina Van Tassel, who is basically like the foil for both of them. And it shouldn't be understated that the character of Ichabod Crane is kind of a shitty person. I mean, he has all these fears. But at the same time, his whole attraction to Katrina Von Tassel is based solely on the fact that she is hot and her dad has money. And if they got married, he would have a hot wife and he would have her dad's money. And the ending, the title really plays into the ending where you have the legend of Sleepy Hollow and all these myths about the town. And while it's alluded to that Brom Bones was the Headless Horseman the whole time and scared Ichabod off, you have this idea that the townsfolk say, oh, Ichabod hasn't been seen since. So clearly the Headless Horseman took him, and if you walk past the old schoolhouse, you can still hear him singing. So it's almost like, regardless of what happened, he is now also a legend of Sleepy Hollow. So it's this idea that these small moments in life have a life of their own outside of the events. Like history is a living thing, and it's only that most of the time history comes from people who didn't even experience it. So in a way, I don't want to say it's not cosmic horror, but you could it almost employs the same idea that cosmic horror has of human understanding, but in a way of rich Dutch people just creating things with their mind that might be real, but might not be real, but to them it is real. Huge fucking ramble, but...
No, was there anything else that you wanted to say about Sleepy Hollow, or did you have any other books that you wanted to talk about?
No, not really. I mean, right now I'm in my office and I'm looking at my entire shelf of just books upon books upon books, and I could probably talk about different books worth reading around this season. But there's just too many to mention. I do tend to also like Grimm's fairy tales around this time too, because some of them are dark. Well, most of them are really fucking dark. And if you're in the right headspace, they do play like a little spooky story.
Yeah, I would say that there is a very strong connection between classic fairy tales and, I guess, scary stories. Like, honestly, especially sort of the Celtic mythological inspired
Mhm.
stories, they just come off as Halloween stories to me. Like I don't see much of a difference between, something like the Sleepy Hollow that you just talked about, and say fairies in a fairy ring out in the wilderness somewhere. Like to me, those are
Oh
both
yeah,
the
fairies
same
scare the
thing.
hell out of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't fuck with the fae. No.
Which
Um,
I don't think that I can allow this episode to go out without me talking about this particular property, because I am ashamed of myself that I didn't mention it earlier when we were talking about TV series. Because
Mhm.
Over the Garden Wall, I think, is one of. I think that Over the Garden Wall is a piece of art. Have you seen it?
Okay. No, I have not. I have it in the plans to watch it this month because again we're recording this before Halloween. So there's that. But it is my plan to watch it, mostly because I really enjoyed Infinity Train, and that's the same creator. So I'm really excited to see what they do with the story.
So I won't give away any meaningful future information, but the gist of it is Over the Garden Wall is this short animated series. It's only like 10 or 12 episodes, and it's about these two kids that get lost in the woods. And it takes place in this sort of American folklore world with woodsmen and steamboats and little tiny schoolhouses, and the entire time the children are being pursued by this mysterious entity called the Beast, and they have to try to find their way back home. And like I said, I won't give anything away, but firstly, it just invokes the strongest uh, autumnal and Halloween vibes of almost any cartoon that I have ever seen. Like you watch one episode and you're like, okay, it's Halloween now. It's one of those things where I would almost say, if you want to watch something every year to get into the mood, Over the Garden Wall is probably the thing for you. And on top of that, it's legitimately a very deep story, sort of emotionally and philosophically, because it deals with the idea of being willing to face the world, and choosing to live rather than to die, and figuring out who you are and what you want to do with your life. Like it uses being lost in the woods as a metaphor for being lost in the world and having to find out how to find your way back. Like it's a really good it's a really, really good story. And it also has those sort of like scary stories to tell in the dark vibes, where it's a lot of little tiny vignettes of folkloric horror. So I can't recommend it enough. And like I said, I am genuinely remiss that I did not think to include it in my favorite TV series for Halloween, because it deserves a place higher than any of the three that I mentioned.
It's definitely on the watch list. And probably by the time you hear this, you can probably look at my 31 Days of Halloween on Twitter and see where I watched it. Well, guys, we've had fun talking about all different types of media and what really jives us on the Halloween occasion and the spirit of Halloween. We got one more treat for you today. We're going to play a little game. If you've ever seen the show Secret Word, it's kind of like that. Basically, what it is, we have a list of words that we've written down. Neither of us know what the other's written, and we have to help the other person guess it. So I'm hoping this will be fun. If not, this will just be for our amusement, and you can leave now. Just make sure you subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating.
I am equally worried that we will pick obscenely easy words like bat, and that we will pick ridiculous, obscure things that no one has heard of, like Sonder. Like, I am so nervous that this is going to go terribly. I'm excited for it. Don't get me wrong.
I'm excited too. Okay.
Okay, who's going to start? I suppose we should also mention that we have elected to draw these words from general Halloween themes as well as anything from the movies that we have reviewed on this podcast so far. And we're going to go with about like a 2/3 from the movies, 1/3 from general Halloween ratio. So that's where these words are from. It's not any words.
All right, so we're doing a coin flip to
All
see who
right.
goes first. Jacob, do you want to call it?
Heads.
Okay, heads I win, tails you lose. Okay, no, your heads, I'm tails. Okay. Oh, fuck. Okay.
All right, looks
so
like I
heads. So that
get to go
means you get to
first.
go first.
Ghost. Light.
Casper.
Traveler. Bog. Astray. Hinky Punk. Lantern. Mist. Glow. Dance. Mirage. Trickster.
Spirit. Spectre. Jack-o'-lantern. Will-o'-the-wisp.
Yes, Will-o'-wisp. Nice.
Okay.
Whew. Good guess, man.
Thanks. Leave that one up to the Never-Ending Story, where that book opens up with a will-o'-the-wisp running through the woods. Ah, God, I'm so glad I got that one. Okay, here we go.
I don't know if we're gonna
this
make
one.
this a competition. I don't think we should, but I am gonna keep track nonetheless of like which
Okay.
ones each of us got.
Okay, you're the track keeper. Okay. Wood. Stump. Metal. Name. Barn.
Otis.
Yes. Yes, you got that. I'm having fun. Okay.
Nice.
Okay, your turn.
Demon. Nightmare. Sleep. Sect.
Freddy Krueger? Oh,
Gilgamesh.
maybe Freddy Krueger still. Oh,
Hallucination. Seduction.
sleep paralysis demon.
Male.
Hmm.
Evil.
Lipstick face from Insidious?
No. Prey. Predator. Intercourse.
Succubus.
Evil. Male.
Oh god, I don't know what the male succubus is.
I see you Googling, you shit.
I had to quit. I was tempted, but I quit.
It's you know what the word is. You just don't actually know the word. So like I think that counts, right?
Yeah, what is
it's
it?
Incubus.
Incubus.
I was gonna choose
That's
succubus, but I thought that was too generic. Like everybody knows what a succubus is.
Mhm. I've read about Incubus, but I couldn't think of if it was a... I knew it was a cubis. I just didn't know what the prefix was.
Cuban.
Cubans!
Fidel Castro.
Okay. Rope. Chaps. Chaps. Hat. House.
Nick.
No.
Okay.
Oil.
What's the guy's name?
Partner.
Posey.
Douglas Posey.
All right.
Chaps. Chaps.
Oh, what was that question that Nick asked? Did he prefer roping or branding?
or branding.
I'm still
That
not
made
100%
no
clear on what
sense.
the hell that was supposed to mean. I have
Nick is all knowing, but for some reason he has a weird idea of what gay sex is.
like I mean roping is like enclosing around something, and then branding is like pressing into something. So Maybe it's a pitching and catching thing. Okay. Scientist. History. People. Society. Learning. Behavior. Culture.
Jared Leto in Jared Leto.
No.
My guess.
Human. Language. Archaeological.
Fuck. Christopher Lee's character in Horror Express, what is it? Mr. Doctor, Professor. Fuck. Why am I blanking on his name? We literally recorded it for 2 hours and I edited it for 6.
Do you remember his occupation?
No, he wasn't a cryptozoologist. He was an archaeologist, wasn't he?
No, that was one of my words, was archaeological, so it's not that one.
Oh,
It's similar.
It's a professor?
It's
No.
well, archaeology, but sociocultural.
You lost me.
Anthropologist.
Damn it.
That's the word. You were very, very
I think
close.
he was an anthropologist. Was he an anthropologist?
So here's the weird thing. He's out in like Russia uncovering monkeys, like frozen monkey corpses. I wouldn't think that is anthropology. But I feel like
it says Professor Sir John Saxton.
they call him an anthropologist. Okay, let me take a look at this, because I hope that I am not misleading you here. Let's see. Horror Express.
Anthropologist is what it says on Wikipedia.
Ah, yes, I have just found that. I mean, that's Wikipedia for what that's worth, but
I have a slew of teachers I can call right now who will tell you that is not an acceptable source. Not even for Horror Express.
yes, and I have to rewatch it to make sure, but I'm pretty sure he's an anthropologist.
Is he an engineer?
I'm not even technically an engineer. Stupid fucking laws. All right. What do you got for me?
Okay, here we go. Wardrobe. Snow. Lamp. Sleigh.
Santa Claus?
Dwarf.
Elf.
Magic. Turkish. Deceitful.
The white bitch? The white queen?
Yes, the
Okay.
white bitch.
Okay.
The white bitch from Epic Movie.
The white bitch
How did
doesn't
you
even
know-
care about black people.
This is why we're friends. You knew it was the white bitch, not the white witch.
Now what?
The white bitch doesn't even care about black people.
What does that have to do with Halloween, though, Dylan?
I saw it on Freeform's list of movies they're playing, Chronicles of Narnia,
Okay.
and it's a good costume. The white bitch.
Okay, let's see here. Communication. Spirit. Channel. Seance. Conjure. Evil. Letters.
Cora Fry. No.
Yes.
Kathy?
No. Numbers. Goodbye. Board.
Numbers. Goodbye. Board. Oh, a Ouija board?
Yes. Well, Ouija.
Oh, that was a
Uh,
Ouija. You got any on them Ouija boards?
It's a Luigi board.
It's a Luigi board. Utah. House. Creeper.
John.
Bath. Yes.
Creeper did it.
It's not even the actual goal, just
Yep. I tried so hard to have one of my words be a start the day right reference, but I couldn't figure out how to do that. Okay. Nature. Cultivate. Outdoor.
harvest.
Verdant. Flowers. Dirt. Burial.
Graveyard.
Tend. Plant.
Burial.
Hobby.
Horticulture.
Rose.
Solarium? No, that's indoor.
Church. Lawn.
Cemetery. No. Okay. I'm not sure.
Garden. It's the rose garden from
Oh
yeah.
fuck,
I thought you would get it when I said rose.
Sorry.
It's all right.
That threw me off. I was like, oh god, it can't be rose red.
No, I was worried you might think that it was ROWS and that I was talking about like Children of the Corn or something. He who walks behind the rose or
Behind the rose.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, I got this. Cold. Scared. Garage. Pointy. Cold. House. Beer. Refrigerator. Green. Woman. Killer.
This is very like this feels like a commercial. You're like cold beer, refrigerator, green. I'm like St. Patrick's Day. Wait.
Person.
The person, a leprechaun.
Pointy. Cold.
A cold,
Garage.
a cold pointy person in a
Beer.
garage.
Refrigerator.
Yeah, I've got those. I remember that.
Meta.
Meta. Oh. Old Greg?
No.
Okay. Can you give me a few more words? I don't want to give up just yet.
Okay, movie.
Movie, okay.
Party. Victim. Girlfriend. Voluminous.
Is this one of the movies that we've reviewed?
No.
No, okay.
But it has been talked about.
It has been pointy green woman with. It's like I mean I don't remember the Wicked Witch of the West like throwing back with some Jack
Shirt.
Daniels. I don't know. I give up.
Okay, it was Tatum's nipples and Scream.
What the fuck? Okay. No joke. I was thinking about that scene the entire time. Like from the moment you said garage, cold, and beer, I was thinking about that scene, but I didn't know what in that scene you were referring to. And the fact that you used pointy to refer to her nipples. Okay. Damn it.
I mean, it's a popular meme now. It's what is it? How excited are you for Halloween? Let me see here. There you go. Just gonna use the shit out of the share feature today. Boom. I love that meme. How excited are you for Halloween this year? And it's just very. People even put like little pencil erasers in there.
So as you were saying those words, what kept going through my mind, I was imagining like every green Halloween monster that I could imagine, like going into the garage at Scream and getting a beer out of the fridge. I was like, Frankenstein, the Wicked Witch, Leprechaun, Wishmaster. I was like, all the green people.
No, specifically Tatum's
Get
nipples.
drunk. Okay.
Dobby's sock.
Okay.
Your mother was a Daniel Radcliffe Republican.
All right, I gotta get you back for that one.
Okay.
Medicine, blood, vessel, relax, pill, heart, cardio, angina, oxygen,
Nyarlathotep?
nitrate,
Potato? Blood?
house,
Nitrate?
Victor,
House. Oh, is it Frankenstein?
dance,
Dance.
bar,
Ghoul?
bathroom,
Ghoul? No. Bar, bathroom.
cardiac.
Oh, Vic. It's Vic.
Well, I said Victor.
Is it Vic? Oh. Rosary?
It's related to Victor.
The bar. No, you already said the bar. Oh, I know.
Medication.
I know. I was gonna say, his broke dick pills. Viagra.
Nope. Nitroglycerin. Because he was not taking Viagra, unlike some of our judgmental associates believed. He was not taking dick pills to try to get with Pam. He definitely wanted to get with Pam, but he wasn't taking dick pills.
I couldn't figure out the word nitroglycerin in my head. I kept thinking sodium chloride.
The only reason
No, fool, that's table salt.
that I am familiar with that word so well is because of Panic at the Disco. There's a good reason these tables are numbered, honey. You just haven't figured it out yet. Because there's like that part in the song where he just goes, nitroglycerin.
Okay, let's see here. Friday the 13th. Hocus Pocus. The Conjuring. Mama. Blair Witch Project.
Kenny Ortega?
No. Let's see here.
These are you're listing films. I'm assuming it's something that all these films have in common. Is it like the director of the films?
I can't answer questions, I can only say words.
Okay.
Funny Games. The Strangers. Evil
Horror?
Dead. No. Secret Window. Evil Dead 2. Deliverance. Jennifer's Body.
What are you just listing movies?
The Last House on the Left. The Uninvited.
Slasher.
Hush. No.
I don't know, man.
That movie about that cabin in the woods.
Are you fucking kidding?
No.
That ain't one word. I thought this had to be one word. Ugh.
Oh, sorry, I thought you would get that one.
No, I'm sorry. I legit thought like it had to be like one word or just like one name or something. I didn't know that was an option. I don't know if I would have gotten it anyway.
It's one of those you just look back on it and laugh. That movie about that cabin in the woods. And there's so many scary cabin movies that have the word cabin in it. So,
Okay.
like I couldn't say cabin in the woods, couldn't say cabin fever.
Eyes. Regurgitate. Hunt. Predator. Night.
Is it the creeper?
Feathers. Wing.
Feathers.
Barn.
Crow.
Jareth. Bird. Wise. One she tongue.
God.
Neck.
Is it the Fireys from Labyrinth?
No,
Is
man,
it the
good,
Wise Man?
good guess though. Beak. Bones.
Oh, beak, bones.
Pellets.
Mm. I'm lost. What is it?
Owl.
Oh, an owl.
It's just an
God.
owl.
Ugh.
I thought you get it
I
for
was
sure
like,
when I
what?
said Jareth and then bird and then pellets.
Yeah, well, I was on a different track because there's several birds in the labyrinth.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see here. Now we'll go ahead and tell you this is more of a costume.
Okay.
King. Land. Throne. Warrior. First. Son. Beard. Landing.
Robert Baratheon?
Boar. Yes!
Fuck! I mean, that's really not on my radar for deep cuts of horror. But I appreciate the shout out to Bobby B. Thank you for the boar. Why costume though? Like that one threw me off
People dressed
guard.
up as Robert Baratheon.
Yeah, maybe people dressed up.
Robert, Ned, John.
Seen people dressed up as an outlet.
Cersei.
Ugh.
Maybe it's just maybe it's the people I see who think they're dressed up as Jon Snow, but really they look more like a Robert Baratheon.
The dumb whore with a fat ass. Did you know that? There's this video somebody made. It's like not well edited at all, but it's so great. It takes the line from the intro to House of the Dragon where they say, "The only thing that could tear down the House of the Dragon was itself." And then it cuts to Robert Baratheon just laughing his ass off. Like going, I really appreciate that. Okay.
Just a real quick side note. I really like how House of the Dragon. I like it for what it is now. Because whenever Game of Thrones came out, it was still in that era of HBO Max where they had to have like salacious sex and nudity.
Yeah.
At least like 3 or 4 times an episode. And I like that HBO has been able to move past that requirement. Well, I don't think it was a formal requirement, but having to do that to get views.
Yeah, the House of the Dragon is still very sexual in many places, but all of it is part of the plot or the character development. Like, it's all important, none of it's gratuitous. And even then, it's not even that common. Like, there's one short sex scene in the first episode. There's like none in episodes 2 or 3. 4 is all about sex, but again, it's like the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had one in this last episode 7 that was between 2 main characters. Like, it really, I agree with you completely. I'm glad that they've stopped that. I don't know how much of that was HBO and how much of that was David and Dan being incompetent and just like wanting to put sex everywhere. I'm not very familiar with behind the scenes.
You can kind of track it across HBO shows, like especially True Blood, but you can argue that was like about sex, but you didn't have to show it necessarily all the time. But there was HBO is probably where I saw like my first like actual realistic depictions of sex.
Realistic?
Because before, well, yeah, with like the thrusting and everything. Before, you just have the sheet.
Yeah.
You just have the sheet and the cuddling, and nothing much is really going on besides that.
I had an acquaintance in high school, a mutual acquaintance, I assume, that was trying to study for a world history exam. And so he was, we were going over English history at the time, and he was using the tutors as like a study tool. And so he would be up at like 3 a.m. watching the tutors, and his parents were convinced that he was watching porn. All right, my turn, I think.
Yes.
All right, we'll do a little fun one. Movies. Little. Ice cream. Vehicle. Mommy.
Scootabout.
Yes!
Mommy's little scootabout.
It's like, I can keep going, but I don't think I should have to. You got this. We scooted out to the ice cream. We scooted out to the movies.
All right, let's see here. Castle. Floor. Mars.
Pig fart?
Lion. Yes.
What the fuck? Throw me some curveballs.
It's on Mars. I had to hide my face because I was like, I'm not going to be able to make it through when I mentioned Mars and lions.
Yeah, no, Mars definitely gave it away.
Rumble roar.
Person. Family.
That narrows it down.
Related.
Vin Diesel.
Female. Elderly.
Cersei Lannister.
Decrepit. Sweet. Reindeer. Run.
Grandma who got run over by a reindeer?
Just grandma. Grandma being a reference to Anna in the Apocalypse, in which we had a nice little granny face-sitting scene.
Oh. Oh my god. Okay. Boring.
Deep cuts of horror.
Bland. Person. Basketball. Women.
It's the lady from Wishmaster.
Yep, Alexandra.
Alexandra.
Alexandra. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that's the last round for both of us.
Oh no. I gotta what am I gonna do? Alright, fine. We'll go. We won't do that one. Celebration. Burning. Flame. Gathering. Party. Marshmallow. Hot. Big. Pile. Pit. Festive.
Campfire?
Bit bigger.
Bonfire.
Yes.
Bigger. Let's see here. Okay. So the last one, I gotta make it really count. Okay. Black. Long. Hard. Painful. Cold.
Life.
Trans-Siberian.
Horror Express.
Close. Weapon.
The whip. Telly Savalas' whip.
Telly Savalas' whip, yes.
Yes. Man, you tried hard to disguise that one. I like that.
My only other option was that I had written down was the big toe, and I couldn't really describe that one without
Big toe.
without giving it away, because I'm like, house, garden, questions, sleep,
Foot.
eat,
Soup.
foot. That would have been a good one.
Yeah.
Foot soup.
I
Okay.
had a few on here that were kind of generic references, like race for Carnival of Souls,
Mm-hmm.
narrator for Tenebrae because it had the unreliable narrator, and I didn't want to do any of that for my last one. And then the only other specific one I had was AIDS from Rose Red because she rubs her blood all over Miller's face, and he's worried that he has AIDS. So I was like, oh,
Needs to go, stop by and get an AIDS test.
I only have one more word. I'm not picking AIDS. So we'll go with bonfire.
Most people don't choose AIDS.
I didn't choose the AIDS life. The AIDS life chose me.
That's usually how it happens.
Yeah.
Alright, so if you have one thing to tell the listeners at home, all three of them, what would it be to close out this episode?
Man, you're putting me on the spot here. Halloween is one of the few major holidays in the United States that is widely celebrated. You have Halloween and you have Christmas. And that's about it. Even something like the 4th of July, people gather together and they cook out and they shoot fireworks, but that only tends to last for a day. Maybe a couple days at the most. Regardless of how you feel about horror, which I imagine you're fond of it if you're listening to this podcast, regardless of how you feel about Halloween, take the time to enjoy the season and do the things that make you happy, because that responsibility rests with you, and I hope you can get the most out of it, because I'm going to try my best to get the most out of mine. And thank you for listening.
The white bitch doesn't like black people. That video actually came across my feed the other day. Not that one
The
per
real
se,
one.
but the real one,
Yeah.
Kanye.
I love that video. I love when it cuts to one of the staff members giving that look of what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, and who's he with? Robin Williams? Yeah, someone.
I don't
No.
remember. I don't think it's Robin Williams. It's like Seth MacFarlane or something, isn't it? Or
It's someone funny.
let's let me look it up.
Who's usually funny?
Someone who's usually funny. Stop talking about fish sticks. Yeah, it's Mike Myers.
Oh, Mike
That's
Myers.
who it was.
Someone who's usually funny.
In my defense, I think
Well-
Seth MacFarlane looks like Mike Myers in this video.
I think Robin Williams looks like Mike Myers in that video. They both kind of have the same stance and the same dress style, so you can't blame me. But if I were to close out this Halloween episode with something, I would just probably say, you never know when your last Halloween is going to be. So...
What the fuck, Dylan? You're gonna die in 7 days.
Well, you never know. If COVID's taught us anything, it's that anything can just come out of the blue and wreck your plans. So try to make the most of the season. Don't put off that shitty Children of the Corn marathon. Don't put off going to do a corn maze or visit a haunted house. If giving candy out to children isn't your thing, just leave a take one bowl with enough rationed for yourself, because you know they're going to take more than one. And if it comes to it, you can always just listen to the podcast year round. And it's like Halloween every day here.
Nobody belongs
Yeah, that's
anywhere. Everybody's gonna die. Come watch our podcast.
Time is soup. Yeah, time is soup. So really, Halloween only has as much significance as we give it. So you can make it an all-year thing with us, or you can just make it a monthly thing, or you can make it a one-day thing. But we'll always be here for you along the journey.